The incident at Celestial University. Professor Zenthar's 6 appendages trembled as he adjusted the quantum display floating before the lecture hall. The azure-skinned Vexorian had taught galactic civilizations 101 for over 300 cycles without incident. His courses were renowned for their meticulous attention to historical accuracy and cultural sensitivity. Today, however, marked the first time in Celestial University's 7,000-year history that a human would attend his class. "Remember your training," he whispered to himself. "Ocular membranes fluttering nervously. Maintain neutrality. Avoid provocative topics. Direct controversial inquiries to approved resource materials." The classroom doors parted with a soft hiss as students filed in. Crystalline quartzians who communicated through light patterns, gaseous nebulites contained in their environmental suits, multi-conscious hive collectives of the Zeran expanse. And then, walking alone, the human. Maya Chen stood 5'7", dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, her standard-issue environmental adapter blinking green at her collar. Nothing about her physical appearance suggested danger. Yet faculty members had spent the last 3 months in emergency preparedness training for this precise moment. "Welcome, students," Zenthar began, his voice modulator carefully calibrated to Project Calm Authority. "Today we begin our exploration of the Great Galactic Convergence, the historical period when the 17 founding species established the first interstellar cooperative agreements." The lecture proceeded smoothly for precisely 27 minutes. Zenthar relaxed incrementally as he guided the class through the diplomatic achievements of the early convergence era. The human sat quietly, occasionally making notations on her archaic paper tablet with a manual input device. Then came the question. "Professor," Maya raised her hand, innocently unleashing chaos, "I've been reading about the Proxima conflict that preceded the convergence. Could you explain how the disputing parties resolved their resource claims without military engagement?" Silence engulfed the lecture hall. 3 nebulites visibly condensed in their containment suits. A quartzian student emitted distress patterns so bright that the classroom's automatic filters engage. "Ah." Zenthar's voice modulator failed momentarily before recalibrating. "The Proxima situation was resolved through extensive diplomatic channels and mutual economic incentives." But according to the pre-reading materials, Maya continued, oblivious to the growing tension, both the Arcturian hegemony and the Vega consortium had amassed defensive fleets at the boundary sectors. What prevented escalation when the resource rights remained contested for over 40 cycles? A HiveMind student in the 3rd row began disconnecting individual units, apparently preferring partial consciousness to this conversation. The superior wisdom of avoiding physical confrontation was universally acknowledged, Zenthar managed, frantically activating the emergency signal beneath his podium. Maya frowned slightly. "Forgiveness for my confusion, Professor, but Earth history suggests that when 2 powers reach resource impasse, especially over essential materials, armed conflict typically follows unless deterrence is established. Was there a third-party guarantor involved?" By now, several students had entered voluntary hibernation states. The classroom emergency containment protocols activated, sealing all exits as per the human containment procedure established just months prior. "Miss Chen," Zenthar said carefully, "in civilized space, the concept of armed conflict between sentient species is, well, it's not something we discuss in introductory courses." "Oh." Maya blinked in surprise. "I apologize if I violated a cultural taboo. On Earth, military history is a standard academic discipline. We study thousands of years of warfare to understand diplomatic, technological, and social development." The words "thousands of years of warfare" echoed through the silent hall like a death knell. A crystalline student shattered its outer communication shell in distress. "You study warfare." Zenthar couldn't maintain his professional composure. "As an academic discipline." "Of course," Maya replied with genuine confusion. "How else would we understand the evolution of societies? technologies, and ethical frameworks. The development of everything from surgical techniques to space travel has connections to military innovation. Our earliest civilizations were built around defense requirements, and many of our greatest philosophical achievements emerged in response to war's moral challenges. The emergency doors burst open as the university's traumatic concept response team rushed in, led by Dean Zylos, whose exoskeleton had turned the deep purple of administrative alarm. "Class dismissed," the dean announced, voice harmonics indicating maximum authority. "Non-human students, please proceed to Emotional Decontamination Chamber 3 for preventative counseling. Ms. Chen, please remain seated." As the room emptied, Maya sat in bewildered isolation, watching as 3 specialized handlers in protective gear approached her. "Have I done something wrong?" she asked. Dean Zylos regarded her with all 4 eye stalks. "No, Ms. Chen. You've simply confirmed what our xenoanthropologists have theorized but hoped wasn't true, which is that humans normalized systematic violence as a developmental pathway." The dean's voice softened with what might have been pity. "No other sentient species in known space evolved through predatory competition and sustained intraspecies warfare. The very concept is traumatizing to most galactic citizens." Maya's face registered genuine shock. "You mean no other species has fought wars at all?" Minor territorial disputes occurred in pre-sentience evolutionary phases for some species, the dean explained, but no spacefaring civilization maintained organized violence past their planetary unification stage. The psychological framework required for such behavior is unique to humans. But how do you resolve fundamental conflicts over resources or ideological differences? Maya asked. Through rational discourse, economic incentivization, and when necessary, patient waiting for biological inevitabilities to resolve leadership disputes, the dean said as if explaining something painfully obvious. The concept of intentionally terminating consciousness for strategic advantages. He couldn't finish the sentence. Within hours, emergency faculty meetings convened across Celestial University. Similar scenes played out at the 11 other galactic institutions that had accepted the first wave of human exchange students. By day's end, the Interstellar Educational Oversight Committee had implemented the first version of what would eventually become Regulation 42H, requiring specialized war counselors to be present whenever humans discussed historical subjects in academic settings. Maya found herself reassigned to a modified curriculum focusing on theoretical mathematics and non-historical arts. Her dormitory transformed overnight, with monitoring equipment installed and all access to the university's historical archives restricted. That evening, as she sat alone in her quarters, a message arrived from Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Coalition. Incident occurred at Celestial. Educational integration more complex than anticipated. Stand by for protocol revision. Remember, you represent all of humanity. Proceed with extreme caution. Maya stared at the message, slowly realizing that she had inadvertently revealed humanity's darkest secret to the galaxy. Not that humans fought wars, but that we had built entire civilizations, technologies, and philosophical frameworks around the normalization of systematic violence. What she couldn't possibly know was that her innocent question had triggered something far beyond academic concern. In secure chambers throughout the 17 founding worlds, military conceptual analysis teams began quietly reassessing the implications of a species that had evolved not despite warfare, but through it. And in the highest levels of the Galactic Coalition, a classification decision was made. Humans would be designated as the first Category O species, sentient beings capable of conceptualizing and implementing systematic violence as a political continuation of diplomatic objectives. The first War Counselor training program began the very next day. The Galactic Understanding Initiative. 5 years after what became known in diplomatic circles as the Celestial Incident, Commander Liam Dax of the Earth Diplomatic Corps stood before the Galactic Coalition's Education Committee, trying not to fidget under the collective gaze of 17 different species representatives. Distinguished delegates, He began. 5 years of restricted human participation in galactic academics has yielded valuable insights, but limited advancement toward true integration. I propose we move to Phase 2 of the Understanding Initiative. A murmur rippled through the assembly. The archivist primary, a gaseous entity contained within an ornate hover sphere, pulsed with skeptical colors. "Commander Dax," they responded, voice synthesizer calibrated to project cautious neutrality. "The current arrangement has prevented further traumatic incidents. All 12 human exchange students remain under appropriate supervision, with certified war counselors present during any discussion of temporal development topics. What benefit would expansion offer?" Dax had prepared for this question. Knowledge containment has protected alien students, yes, but it hasn't addressed the fundamental misunderstanding about human history and development. I propose a controlled educational series, Human Historical Perspective, available to advanced Cine Studies students with appropriate psychological preparation. The Vexorian delegate's skin flushed deep indigo with alarm. "You propose teaching alien students about warfare, about human development through challenge and response," Dax carefully corrected, contextualized appropriately and with full counselor support. The debate raged for 7 hours. Eventually, a compromise emerged. A single experimental course at the prestigious Galactic Academy, with triple counselor presence and voluntary attendance, restricted to senior xenostudies specialists with signed psychological waivers. 3 months later, in a specially designed lecture hall with emergency tranquilization systems integrated into every seat, Professor Elena Santos of Earth stood before 23 alien students, all of whom had undergone extensive preparation for what they were about to hear. "Thank you for your bravery in attending this unprecedented course," she began, nodding to the 3 war counselors positioned strategically around the room. "Today we begin Understanding Human Resilience, an alternative developmental pathway." Over the following weeks, Professor Santos carefully guided her students through sanitized versions of human history, the conceptual frameworks that emerged from competition rather than cooperation, the technological innovations born from necessity rather than curiosity alone. She explained how constraint often fueled human creativity, and how existential threats had repeatedly unified quarreling human factions. The course culminated in an examination day, unlike any in galactic educational history. Rather than testing knowledge retention, Professor Santos presented her students with a hypothetical scenario. An asteroid threatens a populated world. Resources exist to evacuate 60% of inhabitants. No technological solution can destroy or divert the asteroid. You have been selected for the evacuation committee. How do you decide who lives? For 4 hours, the alien students grappled with the scenario, producing elaborate algorithmic solutions based on genetic diversity, knowledge preservation, and ecological maintenance skills. The solutions were elegant, logical, and entirely unlike human approaches. When Santos introduced the human historical responses to similar scenarios, lottery systems, ethical frameworks preserving family units, and most shocking of all, instances where individuals had sacrificed themselves for others with no genetic relation, the classroom fell silent. "This," Professor Santos said softly, "is what humans call heroism, a concept that emerged directly from our confrontation with mortality, scarcity, and yes, conflict. It represents not our glorification of violence, but our transcendence of self-preservation instincts." A Quartzian student's light patterns shifted from academic blue to something approximating wonder. "You evolved collective sacrifice behaviors through adversity rather than biological programming." "We did," Santos confirmed. "And that same developmental pathway that produced warfare also produced individuals willing to die for abstract principles like justice, liberty, and the protection of others." The HiveMind student, who had been particularly skeptical throughout the course, disconnected 3 units to process independently before reconnecting to ask, if faced with existential threat, would humans defend non-human sentience with the same sacrificial algorithms? "History suggests we would," Santos said. Humans routinely risk or sacrifice themselves for other species even on Earth, diving into dangerous waters to save animals, running into burning buildings to rescue creatures that contribute nothing to their genetic continuation. Something profound shifted in the galactic understanding that day. What had begun as a containment protocol for dangerous human concepts evolved into something unexpected. The first genuine cross-species appreciation for alternative evolutionary pathways. 6 months later, Commander Dax found himself in a classified meeting with the Galactic Defense Council, an organization whose existence he hadn't known about until receiving the enigmatic summons. "Commander," the Archivist Primary began without preamble, "the Understanding Initiative has yielded unexpected insights. The Council has been monitoring the course outcomes with interest." "I'm pleased to hear that," Dax replied cautiously. "We face a situation," the Archivist continued. "Long-range reconnaissance has detected signs of an expanding civilization beyond the galactic rim. Initial analysis suggests a hive intelligence without individual consciousness, consuming resources at an alarming rate. Our species evolved without defensive adaptations. Ours is a coalition built on abundance sharing rather than scarcity management." Dax felt a chill. "Are you suggesting?" "We are suggesting nothing," the Nebulite counselor interrupted. "We are asking, would Earth consider a defensive partnership agreement with the Galactic Coalition?" And so it came to pass that the most feared aspect of humanity, our capacity for strategic conflict, became the foundation for the most comprehensive interspecies agreement in galactic history. The Human Defense Initiative established joint training programs, with humans teaching tactical thinking, while learning from galactic partners about technologies beyond Earth's development stage. As for education, Regulation 42H remained in place, but its interpretation evolved. War counselors were still required whenever humans discussed history in galactic academic settings, not to protect alien students from trauma, but to help translate between profoundly different developmental paradigms. At the signing ceremony for the Defense Initiative, Maya Chen, now Dr. Chen, the first human professor granted full teaching status at Celestial University, stood alongside Commander Dax. "Did you ever imagine," she asked him quietly, "that my catastrophic first day asking about the Proxima conflict would lead to this?" Dax smiled. "Not specifically, but human history suggested something like it might. After all, adversity drives innovation." They finished together, earning concerned glances from the war counselor standing nearby. The counselor's monitoring equipment registered no traumatic concept exposure among the alien dignitaries present. Instead, it detected something unprecedented in cross-species interaction readings, cautious optimism that perhaps different evolutionary pathways might yet converge toward a stronger whole. The human capacity for warfare had terrified the galaxy. The human capacity for self-sacrifice to protect others would, perhaps, help save it.